Welcome to the Axiom Podcast. I'm excited to be here in the studio with three good friends. We're also office mates. Our businesses happen to be co-located in the same space. So I'm here with the owners of iBusinessSolutions. We have David Yohn, Jamie Dunham, Mike Braun. And I want to start off by just thanking you guys for giving us some of your time. And we talked a little bit before the podcast about partnership. Right. And when Axiom gets into a new business, we pretty much know if it's a business that has partners, it's going to be a little bit more challenging than the ones where there's 100% owner operator. So maybe a start by asking Jamie and David, you guys have been partners together for 17 plus years.
25, 26 years.
26 years.
Yeah, believe it or
We
not.
always follow that up. But, yeah.
So what is it that maybe give us a little bit of the story of how you guys got into business together, and then what has made that partnership enduring long past the time most partnerships kind of go a different route?
You started.
Yeah, so we first met back in the 90s, I think, sometime in the 90s, late 90s. We were working for a boat company here locally in Sarasota, and as we were working, one of the guys who was one of our coworkers there had a father in the financial services industry, and he saw, I guess, something in the both of us and recruited us out of the boating industry into the financial services industry together. We worked in that industry for a little while and ended up ultimately moving over to a health insurance agency here in Sarasota, and was there for probably about 2 years, I think. And there was about 18, 19 agents that worked there, and it didn't take us long to get to a point to where we were bouncing back and forth in the number one, number two seat at that agency. And one day, I don't know whether it was you that looked at me or I looked at you and said, I think we can do this on our own. And so we broke off. Jamie had a house at the time, was married, and we ended up building onto the back of his house. He had like a little lanai area. We enclosed that lanai area, made an office out of it, started our first agency, and it was off and running at that point. So
We often get this question, what made our partnership work? And partnerships began with usually a couple of guys or a couple of people in any ways that have a great idea and say, let's go into business together. And as you've witnessed over your career and what you deal with, they often fail. And to us, it's a hard question to answer. It has just worked. And you evaluate strengths and weaknesses amongst each other, transparency, honesty, humility, and you work through it. We do have a common faith that also helps to stay grounded with humility. And if you talk through every situation, you make it work. No different than a marriage or any other. We went into business together, so we got to make it work. And it just somewhat came natural. You've asked this question to us before, Joey. How does this work?
Because I'm incredibly curious.
And it's really a hard one to answer because it seems like it's just come so natural, and it's been successful.
I think one of the common traits that you find in most business owners are type A personalities, right?
Yeah.
They're go-getters. They have strong, passionate drive in them, and that also sometimes leads to ego. And ego comes into play into most businesses, especially when you're successful. It's when you're in the grind and trying to work.
When you're struggling to make payroll, that there's no ego involved in that.
Correct.
Yeah.
But when the money comes in, you get a little bit of fame and notoriety. Ego definitely becomes part of the equation, and so as I think through that question, what makes us different? The faith aspect is definitely a big driver. Jamie and I have had instances where we've prayed together and over issues that we're having. So that's a big driver. But the other big driver, I think, is that we've managed somehow, I don't know the secret sauce on how we've managed to do this, but we've managed to keep our ego out of the business. We both agreed a long, long time ago that the success of the business was more important than our ego. And so in doing so, when we make those decisions, whether it's personally good for me or personally good for him comes second nature to whether or not it's good for iBiz. And that's really, I think, the main thing. He has his strengths and weaknesses. I have mine. I, for the most part, let him stay in his lane, and he lets me stay in my lane. And that has helped towards the success of this.
It's interesting that there wasn't like I love the part of the story where you say, I don't know if it was me that looked at him or him that looked at me and said we could do this on our own.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of speaks to, it was very much a joint venture. There wasn't one person who was charging and said, hey, come help me do this.
Yeah.
So it was kind of 50-50, if you will, from the get-go. But there wasn't like a sitting down and saying, okay, well, here's the things that we need to constantly remind each other of, or here's the core values, which is, that's some part of our planning model.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like we're big believers in it, but you guys were able to grow without having sat down and done that on day one. But I think that what you both have touched on is that having that faith, that is the values.
Yeah.
Right. That common, what are you going to hold yourself accountable to? And what is the other partner going to agree to be held accountable to? And another interesting thing that I thought of, I've worked with a couple of guys like CEOs, and those relationships get pretty deep. So you start talking about personal things, and I've worked with a few who are moving into like a second marriage, right? And so first didn't work out. They've been single for a while. They meet somebody, and there's this moment of truth where if they're going to get married to this person, they have to kind of undress financially, emotionally. What's your business? What's the business really worth? How much is it really going to support us? How much do we really need two incomes or not need two incomes? And that has been, I've watched two CEOs go through this, and it is like gut wrenching for them.
Yeah.
Like, what if she sees that the business looks great on the outside, but she sees all the things that you're seeing and trying to help us with? And so going back to the humility, and what the other common denominator I'll put on those two cases is, one of the things that we were trying to coach that business owner through was getting out of the way of their own ego.
Yeah.
And so when you guys started off and you're literally like day one and you don't even have an office, it's like, we got to build an office. Real estate's too expensive. You got a house? Let's throw something on the back of your house.
That's exactly how it went.
So it's like you guys had to start from a place. It's kind of like the newlyweds who are getting married poor, in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, we got nothing, and we both know where we came from.
Yeah.
So don't pretend otherwise.
Well, that was another big driver, is the fact that when we started, neither one of us had extensive experience in the industry. So every day was a new challenge. And when we got into payroll kind of through not an accident, but we had the short version of the story is we were working with ADP. ADP appointed us to be able to do some work on their or write business on their work comp side. And then eventually down the road, they got the same contracts that we had and started taking that same business that we were writing for them back. And so we realized we had to figure out how to do payroll. And so we started a payroll company, and the first dollar was the first dollar of payroll that we ever had earned in our entire life. And so right now, as we continue to go through this, the company has been pretty successful. We just celebrated our 17th year on the 8th of this month, and so it's been successful. But every milestone has been a brand new milestone in our lifetime, because we've never done it before anywhere else. We didn't come from corporate ADP. We didn't come from corporate paychecks or had a background in that. We have had to overcome and figure things out every step of the way, and I think that keeps you humble sometimes.
In the beginning, it's we speak to professionals like yourself, and partnerships don't work. Don't ever go into partnership. And
Everyone says that.
And so we lean on other professionals, and we don't. We navigate our own path, And when we're looking at it, I don't think many people have they're not very enthusiastic about failure. So if we weren't enthusiastic about every failure that we made and learned from it and continue to navigate the path together, that's what did it. So we failed a lot. But we wanted to ensure that we just don't do this again. You know, every failure led to success on the other side.
So let me put Mike on the hot seat for a second. And so Mike is also an owner of iBusinessSolutions. So tell us a little bit about how you came into the organization, what it looked like when you joined, and I want you to answer that question from the perspective of, like, did you see these are two guys? Like, what did you see when you came in that caused you to stick around? Because we've all worked at dysfunctional places, right? So a big part of a successful story is finding people that you go, I like working with these guys, and they like working with each other, and this isn't a toxic partnership, right? So you're kind of looking at it the way Axiom looks at it. It's like, oh boy, this one's going to be a challenge, but you're signing up for 40 hours, 50 hours a week with these guys. So tell us a little bit about your journey and what you think has made that work.
You know, I was in the golf industry prior, and a dear friend of ours, Becky McQuillan, introduced me to the guys, and it was two guys in Lynn, and I walked in, still remember it today, I think it was a Tuesday when I did the interview, and I walked in, and Lynn was sitting right there, and the boys come back from lunch, and I was like, okay, these are the guys I'm be interviewing with, and it was just it was a moment of, like, okay, could this be the next chapter? And I'm going to give this a wholehearted, full effort on this interview. And when I walked out of there, they didn't sugarcoat it. And that's what I think I loved about it. There was no sugarcoating. This is a tough industry. Sales is tough. But if you have the follow-up and the tenacity to follow through, you can make it work. And I've been a partner now for 5.5, 6 years, been with the company 14 years. The thing that keeps me coming back each and every day is that we know our strengths and our weaknesses. And all of us have different strengths, which I think that's what propels us to have such a successful outcome at the end of the day. So Jamie has a weakness, but I have the strength, and I don't belittle the weakness. I encourage it on a different side. Now, I'm 38 next week. These guys are like brothers to me. So I have to realize.
At least you didn't say fathers.
No. They're like brothers to me because I see a little bit of me in both of them, but I feel the way that the thing that attracted me most about it, it was a grassroots organization that no one handed them anything. Nobody said, okay, here's $1 million, just don't mess it up. Every dollar that they earned, they put back into the business. They weren't buying boats and planes and doing absorbent amounts of craziness to have an ego. They put it back in the business, and they treated their employees right. And that's why I was like, okay, if I'm going to get partnered with a company, this is the one I needed to be a part of. And like, give you a personal one, Dave married my wife and I. So it's like you look at different partnerships, and it's like I say that to the close people in my life, but I'll say it on this channel is just because that's what it takes. You ask 17 years, what makes a partnership last? Those are the things that make it last. Trusting them to be around your family, trusting it, to have the hard conversations. I've cried with these boys. We've laughed. We've played so many rounds of golf Friday afternoons.
Which we talked about. I'm still trying to break into that golf circle.
Still trying to break in. But I think that's what makes it. We love to work. We love to have fun with each other. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't put down the weaknesses. We try to uplift them. And like I said, I'm excited for what the next 15 and 17 years have to offer.
One of the things that I do think, and I've thought this a long time, and I probably started thinking it about the time I met you, because David, I've known you through C12. We've been in the same C12 group for 10, well, since how long have you been in C12? 10 years. 10 years. So we've known each other for 10 years, and met Jamie probably like within the first year, because we came in for a core report, and I probably met you before that anyway. But what I saw in the two of you, which was somewhat of a superpower in terms of business, is that you do have a partner. you're not carrying the load completely on your shoulders. So I'd like the three of you to just kind of talk about that, because you all have operational responsibilities. Like, none of you are just receiving dividend checks in the mail. Like, you're coming in, you have direct reports, you're working with employees, you're working with customers, you're building systems and processes. I see this guy all the time, hear him more than I see him, because our offices are right next to each other. So I know you guys have some heavy lifting to do during the week. How does the fact that you do have partners make the day in, day out easier, or does it even play into that?
Well, it surely has morphed over the years. Obviously, with the bigger we get, and leadership transforms itself to trying to get others to be successful. So your to-dos, or I should say your workload of actual doing, becomes less, and it becomes mentoring and leadership and coaching, and how do we make everyone around us successful. So from internal roles, Dave's strength is just sheer operations, numbers, back office, keeping all systems ago, kind of a jack of all trades, or now a utility player cheerleader within the office, keeping everybody happy and making sure everyone has what they need in order to be successful. And then from a Mike's perspective, and they can speak on it, one thing that really attracted us to Mike in the beginning is that he was a teacher and a coach. To have the ability to teach someone and they understand and he can communicate well enough that they can improve their golf game was always attractive to us. So if you have that ability inherently and it's comes natural, then you can do that in business, and you can be a leader and coach a team, and that's his strength now, is he's got a team of performers.
Yeah.
And every day's keep coaching to improve.
This is worth a side rabbit trail, because I look at Mike, and I've used you. I think I've told you this before. I've used you as the example for some of our clients on the importance of sales discipline, and particularly follow-up. Because you've told me, like, until they tell me, get the hell out of my life, never call me again, you blankety blank blank. Like, I'm going to call you in 6 months and just see how you're doing and see if you're ready. Yep. But your path to that, very non-traditional. You mentioned earlier, you didn't have any experience in the industry, but just tell us your story for a second, because I think this is instructive. And what Jamie just said, what they saw in you, they saw much like, and we talk about this with clients, like hire for values, hire for character, because we can train just about any skill set, right? And that seems like that was at play
that's
here.
It, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I came from the golf industry, but I think we have a rally cry was like follow up. I know it sounds so cliche, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, follow up. I have it in the CRM system, what have not. But I think what the way I am is in the golf industry, and when I played golf, even throughout my whole career, was like, if I shot a 40, could I have shot a 38? And you look back and you say, okay, well, most of your money's made within 100 yards and in. So maybe if you just changed one or two things along the way, you could get to that 38. But you can't dismiss all the other shots that got you to that. Mm-hmm. And so I take that same additive to say, okay, if I just made one more phone call, what could be the possibility? Mm-hmm. And I use this example all the time. I encourage the team to say, if you made 42 calls instead of 41, you could have gotten that. You could have got there. I'll take that final call because you got all the way down the road, but you didn't want to finish the race. I'll finish the race for you, and you just did 98% of the work. And I think a lot of time in sales, that's where they stop. They stop way too soon. And if I had to coach any salespeople or lead another company and say, okay, if I was going to be in charge of sales, I'd say your follow-up is your key to success. And it's not easy, but the reward at the end, it gets easier because of the comfort level to know that, hey, I can make 32 calls, and at the end of the day, it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
So,
it's one of the things that I've learned over 20 years is that pretty much there's very few like prospects that I would meet with who are not going to need what we do at some point. But it's very rare that I meet a prospect who needs exactly what we do exactly at the time I'm meeting with them.
Correct.
And that's the follow-up piece, right? So if I can't stick around and continue to make the offer, I'm, the odds are not in my favor that the stars are going to align and I'm going to be sitting across from somebody when they're exactly ready. And I think you've taught me that as well. When we talk about the relationship between operations and ownership, right? And one of the things that we might talk about with clients is, well, you have a sales manager hat, right, that you wear in the building 5 days a week and you lead team meetings like that, and you have an operations hat and you have a utility player, make sure that everybody has what they need hat. What does it look like to take that hat off? And when does that happen for you guys? And what are those conversations like where you take that hat off and you put on the owner hat?
That's a great question. And I'm looking directly, and I'm sure David will too, right at Mike. It's often that this has to happen. And sometimes it's in hard decision making. What would we do as an owner versus for ourselves in our position? I don't know that you and I, we've made those difficult decisions often. It comes more from, say, a Mike perspective as he's grooming and coming up, that he's leading a team and held accountable to sales, or you're inundated with the day-to-day. And instead of looking at tomorrow, next year, the next 5 year, what's our 10-year game plan look like? And are the decisions that you're making in the best interest of what our plan is? So I don't know if you want to speak on it, but taking the hat off from an owner, we often look at it from an owner perspective
I think
first.
Well, too, to add to that, I mean, you guys had the owner's hat on from inception.
Yeah, that's a big difference for you.
Inception is a lot different. And I think you guys keep coaching me. Joey, you've said stuff too, is that when you get brought in as a partner, you were hired in as, and I'm not going to say this, it sounds bad, but as an equal. Everyone's equal at this company. But the ownership group always seems to be elevated just because of the ownership. But I come in as an employee, everyone looks at me, and then you rise and you go to a manager. And you earn a little bit more seniority. And then when you go to a partner, it's like, well, I still had that same friend level down here. And then when you say, okay, I got to have that tough conversation with you, I'm putting the owner hat on, but then when we go to lunch, I'm going to put the team member hat on again too. So I struggle with it more than you guys do.
Well, you got another layer as well too, because you not only have the partner hat, you also have the sales manager hat, but you also have production quotas that you have yourself.
Right.
So when you're in the trenches, you're shoulder to shoulder with your fellow sales guys doing their job. Then you're stepping out of that and you're having one-on-ones with them, managing the whole sales team. And then you're going into leadership team meetings and have your ownership hat on as well, making decisions for the whole company. So he's got it way worse than we do. And it took him a while, to be honest, when I think he became an owner sometime in either 2019 or 20. I think it was maybe 20. And I remember having multiple conversations with you about issues with fellow staff members where, there was decisions that he was making and they weren't followed through with them. And these were top-down decisions, not even necessarily departmental decisions. And he's like, Dave, how do I handle that? And it goes back to that whole thing, you have a title, but respect is earned, not given. And so, you have to change the way you talk. You have to change the way you address people. That friendship level that you can have when you're shoulder to shoulder with people sometimes has to be altered a little bit in a management role when you have authority over someone. And so that's been a learning curve that he's had, but he's done a great job with that transition.
What was it like, Mike, that transition into ownership? And because I think, you are the aspiration for a lot of business owners. Like I can find somebody out there who's got the character and the values that resonate with the way I want this company to operate, and you're highly motivated, kind of goal driven, like accountability, like being held to a standard, and then perform against that to the point where they're like, okay, like I really need to bring this person into ownership because it's the best thing for the company to have them sitting in an owner's table and responsible for the whole, not just an operational part. So what advice would you give? Maybe we could ask Dave and Jamie to step out of the room for a second if they did it differently, but what advice would you give to business owners who may be seeing that? And what are the things that they need to do other than just, hey, I want to invite you into ownership. Like here's what that looks like from a financial perspective. What is required for that to be successful?
So I think it's a couple parts. The financial aspect, which is crazy. The financial piece really wasn't not even on my mind when I want to become partner. It was more like, can I see the vision growing with these guys, and can they see it in me as well? And so, like, if you're a business owner out there and you're looking for someone to maybe take the reins or to take the next steps with you, I would say there's a lot that goes into it, but Dave and Jamie put the steps in place. They said you have to become part of C12. It's a must. But C12 is a stepping stone. It's a foundational piece of being an owner. And you know, I look at it and I say, I'm privileged. I'm honored every single day to wear a partner hat. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a sales guy. I'm a sales guy. I love to sell still.
Pretty good one too.
If I can add benefit to a company, and I've never wanted to become a manager. It just kind of just fell in our laps and says, okay, well, this is what's going to happen, and I'm excited for the role still to this day. You know, Jamie always had this. He had this comment one time. Oh man, this was what 9 years ago, 10 years ago. You're like the whole got a minutes. Everyone knocking on your door. You got a minute. You got a minute. And I never knew how many times we did it to Jamie until I was the manager, and then people were coming in my office saying, "Hey, you got a minute." I actually like the got a minutes, but you got to have them controlled. I don't want your whole soapbox story every single day. Have it worth something. Have some substance to the got a minute, and then make sure the got a minutes aren't repeating themselves. So for a business owner out there that's looking to bring somebody on, you got to have the same values. You can't have two different sets of values and expect them to jive with your mission and vision. They have to have the same values, and it's got to be on a constant basis. You can't have a highlight reel and expect that to last your career. Consistency, track record, that has to play a part in it.
What are some, talk about track record for a second, because that's an interesting concept. What are some signs of that track record, or what does that look like in real life?
Track record for me, I like to see consistency, especially in sales. You have your ups, your downs. We talk about in sales all the time, your peaks and valleys. Okay, stay out of the valleys. But when you're on a peak, it's really only one direction to go. It's going to go down. So I like to have kind of like a flow like this. So track record for me is, how consistent are you? Are your years progressing in a manageable growth? So if you're adding 10 to 12% every year, that's a good growth for sales. You know, it's the high, I grew 250%. Is that even sustainable?
So are you saying to owners, like you, maybe somebody in your position, and they go, hey, this person's doing a great job managing sales. They just had an incredible year. If we don't make them a partner, they might leave. And you might be saying, well, make them prove it. You know, year 2, year 3, year 4 after that record year, can they repeat, or was this maybe a fluke in the market? Hurricane came through, like we do a lot of work in construction trades. Hurricanes, hate to say it, but they're great for business, right? Everybody has a big boom after that. It's easy for sales managers to post record years. But then you go, well, how'd you recover? How did your post-hurricane year compare to the year 2 years ago?
And if you're a sales manager, even a fellow salesperson, you got to look at it from a lot of different ways. Are you uplifting the team? You know, you win and you lose as a team. You know, individual accolades are nice. You get a nice little trophy, you put it on your thing, it collects dust. Oh, that's nice. But are you picking up the other people that are falling short? So that's one aspect. Second aspect is, you can have a great year, but to me, I think it's got to be 3 to 5 years proven worth. in the industry, because you have to have a little ramp up period. But after that, that truly looks at it. And a partnership doesn't mean like, I'm just going to give you 20%. Have some sort of a buy-in to it too. You know, nothing was given to me. I had to work to get into this position. And still to this day, I still have to work for it. Those are the controlling partners. Yeah. I still have to report to them. Even as an owner, I still look up to them, but they hold me accountable.
Yeah.
So
I think the point you make on buy-in is super important. We've done work with family businesses where I'm thinking of one business in particular where one sibling kind of got involved in the business 10 years before the other, and the parents gave that sibling after 5 or 6 years, they gave him stock.
Yep.
They just gave it to him. And then the other sibling came in, and there was a desire to do the same thing. And what we heard from the first sibling was, well, I earned mine. Like, where did you, I don't have that in my notes. What did you pay for it? No. That's that blood, sweat, and tears. You know, I was like, well, that's what he's doing, right? So, you know, it would have been such a more manageable situation if they would have said, well, the value of the company was X, you know, on this date, and he bought in at that valuation, 5% or 10% or 20% or whatever the number was. And then the next sibling comes along and it's like, well, we were going to give you the same deal. The company's worth more, right? So, you know, 5% is going to cost more than it did 10 years ago. But that's because he's been doing the work to grow the company, right? And that's a much easier argument to make. So I appreciate your point on buy-in. I'm making mental notes of like anytime I see, I just want to give like, no. Because today it's great, right? Yep. On the day they gifted that son the equity, it was fantastic, right? Rewarding him, he's enthusiastic about the growth, but you're signing up for this doctor's bill that you're going to have to pay later because of the problems you're creating. So well, let's switch gears and talk about your industry. I envy you guys because every freaking business in the world knows that they have to do payroll. They know over a certain size they're going to have to do workman's comp. And a lot of them have come to the point where they're going to pay for benefits for their employees. And we go into a business and we're like, hey, you need a strategic advisor to help grow your company. And they're like, what the heck? I've never heard of that before, right? So you guys don't have to do the educational work that we do. But let's talk about what's happening in your industry. I like to, anytime we have a subject matter expert in the room, I want to gain some insight for me personally that I can pass on to clients, but also that people listening might benefit from. So let's talk about payroll first. What's happening in the payroll industry? You mentioned some big players. It's kind of important, I think, for owners to kind of get almost like a buyer's guide. So like, what does that landscape look like if I just went the Paychex route or went the ADP route, or maybe I need to go a route because we're doing it internally and it's a headache. What would you advise business owners who might be looking at that just on the payroll side?
Yeah, I mean, you really, there's a couple different things. I mean, the Paychex and the ADPs of the world, they're buying up the companies, and I think that's what we've seen.
They're buying up guys like you.
No, yes, they're buying up. They're buying up payroll companies.
Smaller payroll. Okay.
Yeah, and so my thing is you know, earlier this year, Paychex acquired Paycor. That was the largest acquisition.
I didn't know that.
$4.1 billion. Wow. It was huge. And at the time, Paychex cut 1 out of 11 checks in America. Now that ratio is about one out of 8. ADP is still the largest at 1 out of 5. So when you look at the landscape of what payroll companies are becoming, it's becoming 5 to 6 giants of the world. And it's kind of like the Amazons taking over. It's the payroll companies of the ADP, the Paychex. Those guys are taking over as well.
So when you say when you say the Amazons of the world, I'm like, I love Amazon.
Yeah.
Because it's cheap, it's fast. You know, what I noticed though is that, like, I like to do woodworking.
Yep.
And so I will hear about a tool, whether it's a plane, a handsaw, a chisel, and I go look for it. It ain't on Amazon. The stuff that's on Amazon is typically like the lower end of the quality spectrum. If I'm looking for a name brand that's known for craftsmanship or quality or has a long pedigree, not going to find it there.
Yeah.
So does that analogy hold in your world? Like, why do you say the Amazon? What are the implications of that for business owners? What do they need to understand about choosing one of those 6 to 8 big players?
It's don't get caught up in the turn and burn because of the name brand. A lot of them will turn and burn when you sign up with a company. The track record that they have is they're just known. I mean, ADP's been around for 45 years.
Name
Paychex
recognition.
Just,
it's like IBM,
yeah.
the old saying, nobody's going to get fired for hiring IBM.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So for me, it's like, you know, our brand is starting to become more popular, but the competing against the ADPs and the Paychex of the world, don't get caught up just because they're on billboards and they're on a logo on a guy's golf shirt on a Sunday tournament. Don't get caught up with that. That can sometimes you'll fall prey to, hey, I signed you up, gave you a great entry rate, and now you might never hear from them again. And you touch payroll every week or every 2 weeks. You got to have somebody that's intimate with you with that. You want a company that comes alongside of you, that can be a partner with you and help you succeed with your goals in mind. So that's what we try to do. We try to not just be a plug and play type of company. We want to come as an advisor with you. What are you struggling with? I mean, you meet with business owners all the time. What we come across is say, are you having those challenges of hiring somebody? Well, the system can do it, but are you guys willing to do it within the system? And I think it's more educational to say, if it's time, it's saving you money. And I can save you on an invoice, but that's not ultimately at the end of the day.
Interesting. Yeah, so you guys have tools that business owners can leverage if they're willing to learn how to use them.
That's, yeah. So sometimes that's the hurdle, is stuck in your ways.
What is the operational side of that look like? Like that, talk about maybe the difference that somebody experiences 2 to 3 years down the road. I've had a lot of clients with ADP, a lot of clients with Paychex. I think one of the, typically, I don't hear about like the weekly problems. Usually have issues onboarding new employees, offboarding old employees. The first and final payroll is kind of an issue. We've had a lot of issues lately with, I guess there's an automatic enrollment for 401k plans. Mm-hmm. So that's caused some issues because companies spin up 401k plans. And one of our clients ran into an issue where they didn't have enough people opt in, so the plan was top heavy for highly compensated employees, so they had to unwind it. And then they wound up just disbanding the plan because they're like, everybody who comes in is going to be auto-enrolled, and we're going to be collecting pay, and then we're going to have to give it back at the end of the year, and it's just a hassle. So there's definitely been some kind of waves that we've seen clients navigating. But the other thing is from our perspective as the advisor, a lot of times it comes down to the reporting. Like, can we get good information about where our labor cost is going? And that could be like to a job, if we have a job costing, like a construction services client or something like that, or it could be to a department, or how do we get that information out of the payroll report and into the accounting system? But where do you see, or what do you perceive as the high value touch points 2, 5, 7 years into that engagement? Where is iBusiness making a difference in terms of its competition?
I'll lead that a little bit. I think one thing that we really do well, our solution, I don't even want to sound cliche, is intuitive, that it manages everything within one system. What I mean by that is our staff and how we train internally is anticipate the need. As a company's growing, and we have a pretty intimate group that are assigned to specific clients, so they get to know them really, really well and their growth, and we evaluate it. So what you'll see, even with the big box brands that you had named, that they are buying applicant tracking separately. They're buying learning modules, training modules separately, where we have everything in combination in one solution. And we always say, there's always challenges or accidents at intersections. We don't have intersections. Everything is in one solution. So as we're evaluating and asking the questions to the client and our staff, also we communicate with them weekly as they report payroll and anticipate the needs. What does their future look like, and make recommendations based off of that. And once we start breaking the chain of all these outside solutions and bringing it all into one, now your reporting is different. It's true. Everything, if you look at from health benefits to deductions to your 401k and huge on compliance, workers' comp is derived, insurance is derived off of payroll. So now all of these solutions are wrapped up into your payroll solutions. What does your reporting look like now? And as a company grows and they break those thresholds from 50 employees, from compliance perspectives, the system automatically adjusts. And we adjust to the client to, and again, anticipate what their 3 to 5 year plan looks like. And before they run out and buy a separate applicant tracking solution, it's inclusive. Now we need to train and get you up to speed on how to do it.
And to follow up with that, though, too, is, the average lifespan of when you shop for payroll companies is about 3 years. Our average tenure client is double that. So we get to that 3-year mark, and they're just getting warmed up with us. Now the other companies we're going after, and they're on the exit. So I think with us is the culture inside the environment of the office keeps the clients around. We don't have high turnover. And it's not like you're getting promoted like the big companies. You're getting promoted every 6 months. And I was talking with Dave, who's my service rep, and now he's gone somewhere else. That has a lasting effect on the end user, which is the client. It's all one system, but most of the time what we have found from our clients is we'll ask them, well, why do you stay? And it's because I know the people behind the phones. And that's a big key. The system can do it, but it's also the people that make the system shine.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of touch on that a little bit as well. So that I think that's one of the big issues on why we have good retention rates. We don't lose clients very often. If we do lose a client, it's typically due to acquisition. That's the main reason. So we have a company that's got 50 or 60 employees. They've been with us 8 years and they just got bought out. And a larger company, maybe in a different state or something of that nature. When you call one of the big box companies, typically you're calling with a client ID. That's how they know you. So hey, instead of, hey, this is Dave giving you a call, it's client. Let me know your client ID, and then that's how they recognize you. When you call our office, we know you intimately, and one of the things, and Mike was kind of alluding to it as well. We get to talk to our clients every single week, every single 2 weeks. The phone call is not always about numbers. A lot of it has to do with personal issues as well. We learn through our clients when their kids are graduating college. We learn when they have a sick spouse in the hospital. We learn when they just lost a loved one or lost a pet. And so we take that very seriously. And we understand that, although we're not a counseling service, we're a friend. We're a partner of our clients. And so we even have an internal communications channel where when one of our team members learns about something, so if a client has a spouse that just ended up in the hospital, we will then turn around and make sure that we send a note out, a handwritten note to that client, letting them know that they're on our minds. And we are a faith-led company. We pray for our clients as well. And so that takes us to a different level. That's just part of our DNA around here. The big box companies, they just can't do that.
We have a spoken allotted time to our staff that if someone is going through a challenge, to just stop and listen. It becomes more important than the work that they're about to perform.
Absolutely.
And that's a real thing. I mean, it really does happen. And then they do, and when they hang up the phone, they share that with everyone else.
Well, I can speak from the recipient side of this because they're at my desk right now. There's a handwritten note that's signed by 24 iBusiness employees because my father passed away a few months ago. And I got a handwritten note and just saying, we're praying for you. But everybody wrote something different. A lot of them were, I'm praying for you. Sorry for your loss. So I've received that. I've been on the receiving end of that. It's pretty special. And so I commend you for that. I commend you also for saying, training people that, when you hear something personal going on, that's the purpose of the call.
Yes.
That's the primary purpose. There's a secondary thing that they might also want you to do before you get off, but the primary thing is care for the person. It reminds me of Tony Hsieh and Zappos, where in an age when everybody was measuring call volume per hour, he was measuring who had the longest call today, right? And like somebody set the record for like
From an owner's
14
perspective,
hours.
that's
right?
not.
It seems counterproductive,
Yeah,
but
that
that's
is
but
not,
that's what it's all about.
Built a company that sold to Amazon for billions of dollars
Yep.
because he did it differently than everybody else would. What would you say to a business owner? What question should a business owner be asking? Let's say there's nothing going on with their payroll. There's no pain. There's no suffering. The company they're working with isn't screwing things up. But what's the question they should be asking that they're not asking?
You know, the payroll industry has changed. We've been in it for iBusiness is 17 years old. We had a payroll company prior to this, so we've been doing it for over 20 years. When we first got into the payroll industry, people used to ask us, "Can you cut checks? Can you make my direct deposits? And can you pay our taxes on time?" Those were the big things back then. On did you have what protections did you have on your checks that you're cutting, security protections? That is all a given right now. So the industry itself has changed so much over the last 20 years. And where it's going in the next 3 to 5 years is just going to be unbelievable. The AI component that's going into our industry is going to change things dramatically. So ultimately, at the end of the day, from just the payroll perspective, having something accurate is like the ultimate goal, right? Yeah. It's obviously no tax issues. All of my employees got paid. The AI component is going to come in and going to help in a lot of those areas because it's built into the system, and over the next 3 to 5 years, as it continues to develop, I think you're going to see situations where it's actually helping you from a business owner standpoint be able to produce a more accurate payroll, reminders on things, giving you flags on telling you that this employee got paid maybe too much or too little based on its average, helping you to remember to pay specific things that you normally forget or would forget on a payroll run. So that kind of stuff has changed probably in the last 2 or 3 years. It's coming on board, but it's gaining traction, and now we're seeing it more and more as the systems continue to evolve. And the system that we process on a system called iSolved, and iSolved is not a small company. It's nationwide. It's in multiple countries as well, and so there's a lot of money behind the development of it. And so I'm excited to see the changes that's going to happen to our clients over the next couple of years.
Sorry, Joey. To follow up with that, so your question was, what can the business owner aspect?
Yeah.
I always say this: you go through a benefits renewal, you go through an insurance renewal, you have renewals every year. Nobody ever looks at the renewal for payroll.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
It's kind of like that. What was that? The guy with that thing? Set it, forget it. What was that guy's name?
Ron Popeil.
Yeah, Popeil. Everyone thinks like payroll is just set it and forget it. That should be the furthest thing. Payroll is your largest expenditure in any business, and nobody takes the time to review it. That should be a trigger point. When you renew your benefits, you renew your insurance, have a checklist to renew and look at the payroll piece.
Yeah.
Evaluate the functionality
it's the
and the
functionality
offerings.
of it, and it's like, well, if it's not broke, then is there a cost savings factor?
Yeah, but to kind of circle back to your question, so as a business owner, what should I be looking? Well, it's not just payroll anymore. It's an employee experience. It's the starting process of it. So even from an applicant tracking standpoint, if you're not using an applicant tracking system right now, you are behind the 8 ball. You're
So
behind
you're talking
the curve.
about, we decide to start looking for somebody for an open position.
Yep.
Do we have an underpinning system to run that process?
Correct, because there's thousands and thousands of job boards out there. So Indeed is a big one, but everyone doesn't use Indeed. There's a lot of people that are on other job boards. So if you were to go out and try to manage each job board, even if you were to manage 5 or 6 of them, it's a full-time job to do that. So an applicant tracking system that's built into our system allows you to be able to create a job. AI will help you create the job post. So it actually, and it creates the job post in a way that is more attractive. It's going to help your number of hits that you get. once the job's created, when you hit post, you're not just posting it to one job board. You can post it, I think ours sends it out to about 1,400 different job boards. And then the applicants, rather than you going to the job board and trying to manage that applicant on the job board, everything filters back into one system where you can manage the whole entire workflow from the hiring process. You can send out skill testings and aptitude testings and personality testings and job offers all through this. You can schedule all your appointments with them. You can do your interviews with them, background screenings, drug testing, all in one system that's managed for each department. And you can give managers control over that aspect as well. And then once that person's hired, all of that data flows directly into the payroll system. That's just a given. That's a basis, like entry level, that all business owners right now should be using, and it's very, very affordable.
One of the things, so we use the system that you're talking about. We're clients of yours. One of the reasons that one of the things we were most interested in was the applicant tracking system, because we do some recruiting for clients. And so, I don't know, I'll probably get in trouble. Maybe this isn't under our licensing agreement, but we use it for clients as if we were using it for us. But it's, a lot of these positions, they're very sensitive. Mm-hmm. The client can't go out and post the job without creating some turmoil internally.
Yep.
And that could be people, who think they're qualified for the job, and we know they're not, feeling slighted because they weren't asked, to become the new general manager or the new sales manager, whatever. So, but one of the things I love about the system is, like, I'm not involved in the recruiting side of the business other than, on the front end. So a client says, we have this need. And I'm like, well, we could do that for you. Here's what it's going to cost, and here's what our process looks like. So I might sell it, but then somebody else is going to come in and run that engagement. And it's a lot of work, man. When you talk, you can vet and you can put in criteria, but at the end of the day, if you want a really top-notch person, you're going to talk to a lot of people.
Correct.
What I love about having all of that in one place is I can go there once a week, once every 2 weeks, and I can see the communication. I can see what's been sent out. And for me, I think for a lot of business owners, if you're delegating the responsibility to find the next person, and one of the reasons you're delegating that and instead of collaborating on it is because you don't know all the technology that they're going to use. You don't know whether they're going to be texting applicants back or emailing applicants back or phone calls. And that's the reason that you're not involved in it. An applicant tracking system is, you have no excuse, because you probably should be involved in it. If nothing else, than to hold it. Like, if you're doing this internally, it's a heavy lift. I mean, who are you guys probably all three are involved in hiring people. And you understand, I think if you got to hire, you got to fill a position. It's like, and this is one more thing I'm going to have to work on for the next 8 to 12 weeks until I find the right person.
Yeah.
So don't avoid it because you don't have a system to make it more efficient for you.
But the applicant tracking is just the tip of the spear. So that gets that gets you the ability to easily onboard an employee, and then once you get him in, what do you do at that point? So we have things like learning management systems that unify your training profile. So rather than having to have a personal person involved in every single training that ultimately at the end of the day is going to be different for each employee, you can unify that and allow and automate it, basically. So LMS systems are big on the horizon, and that's going to be even more from an AI standpoint in the future. What else? Engagement. So employee engagement into the culture, being able to collaborate within that one system as well and share ideas. That's a big.
The first 90 days upon any new hire is the most crucial point.
Yeah.
How you bring an employee on, what that looks like. Was it cumbersome? I got to get my W-4 over here. Did I sign my I-9?
Mm-hmm.
You got to sign it as an employer. All these types of features. That first 90 days is crucial to an employee's either success or demise on how long they're going to stay with the company.
And most of our clients don't, from an I-9, W-4 or W-4.
They don't.
But they don't use paper. I mean, everything. Yeah. If you're using the applicant system and onboarding, everything's electronic. The employee can actually upload their driver's license, fill out their own W-4 forms. that is all electronic as part of the onboarding system. And that's one less burden on your HR department to be able to have to deal with those kind of things. And it's all stored compliance wise and stored into the system itself, easily accessible when you need that information back out of it. So
nice. Quickly before we go, we spent a lot of time on payroll, but you guys are also involved in the workman's comp and the benefit space, which are hugely important when you're talking about creating what I would call like strategic advantage for your clients. Like I think what we've been talking about is what I would call like strategic HR instead of compliance driven HR.
Right.
So where does benefits and workman's comp fit into that? How are they different, and what are the necessities?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we said this, but we're not a PEO for anybody out there. So we probably should have said this.
Is that a 4-letter word in your line of work?
We're an ASO, and we can talk about that on another podcast. But what we have found is the benefit offering, even for restaurants, and the work comp piece. Work comp rates have came down, Jamie, 8 years now in the state of Florida?
Probably 10 years.
15 years.
Yeah, it's
10 years.
been a
so
lot.
the work comp rate has came down dramatically. And so that's made that line of our business even more, I would say, stickier, but it's also very competitive too, because there's not too much concession in that line.
Kind of is what it is.
Exactly. There's a couple things we can get granular about, but on the employee benefits piece, we've seen if just offering a couple different plans, or even starting with like dental and vision, the increased momentum that you get from your employees and the engagement is crucial. Everyone talks about ACA and Obamacare and everything out there. It still exists. It's still there. It ain't going nowhere. It's because Trump's in office. But the fact of the matter is that when we engage with a group, we'll sign up a payroll group. Every 5 payroll groups, we usually bring in a benefit group. That's kind of like our ratio. And we're 2-to-1 on payroll to work comp. So payroll is always our leader, but benefits and work comp are right there. And we have a full staff that does a phenomenal job at just putting the pieces in, but also just doing a review, because benefits renew every year.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think I would put benefits, payroll, and probably workman's comp into the same category as like switching banks, because the perceived pain of making the switch, a lot of times for companies that don't do the job well, that pain is their best retention mechanism.
Yep.
So, what do you say? I guess the same question. You're talking to a business owner who may be listening, and you're saying, what are the questions? And let's just say beyond cost, because workman's comp may be what it is. A lot of variety in HR, but I think not HR, but benefits. But I think benefits is kind of like a black box for most business owners. They don't understand it. It's just so complex. Like this plan, that plan, 50%, 100%, 80%. Everybody in the family, just the employee plus the family. I mean, it's just I've seen the matrices like of all the options for a very small business, and it's like, holy cow! It's like overwhelm hits you early. Yep. So, what are the questions? What are the higher level questions that a business owner's not asking that they should be asking when it comes to benefits?
You want to take that? I mean,
the simple ones that just often get overlooked. Cost is the primary driver, and it never should be. Healthcare costs are absurd, and it's an ongoing challenge. But if you were to go around and if you have a company of 100 employees and you poll your staff who completely understands their healthcare plan, less than 1% of them are going to reply to that. And I use the analogy, if you're paying $750 employee only for your healthcare cost, and even you as the employer, if you absorb the majority of that on behalf, the employee doesn't quite understand the value of that. And then if you're paying 100% and they're receiving this benefit, what's the perceived value of free? If you go to an employee and tell them your employer's paying $12,000 a year for your company-sponsored healthcare plan, I don't go purchase a used car without getting in it, sitting in it, feeling it, test driving it. Does radio work? My mirror's good. Yet we just buy and sell healthcare because everyone needs it. And so ask the question, what are you going to do to help educate my employees? One, that they see the value in what I'm providing them and take it down to that level. And then secondly, how well are you going to communicate that my employees are going to receive and make the most educated decision on their family and the plans, the offerings that we're making? And, you know, I'll digress a little bit and say, we at one time prior to iBiz, we were an all lines agency. And what does that mean? We sell everything from homeowners, auto insurance, 401ks, everything, all lines insurance. And when we started iBusinessSolutions, we said that these are some pain points that most employers are dealing with, and how can we narrow this down and just really be good at those and really hit the challenging areas in these 3 areas, and that's what we did. And so we spend a lot of time, and not often do you get the chance to sit one-on-one with every single employee and educate them, but then through payroll and our employee self-service and what's that employee experience like, and I pick on guys all the time through healthcare, that guy standing up there during open enrollment one time a year and having that conversation. I can't remember what doctors I can go to, what emergency, what hospitals, but through our employee self-service experience, it has all their healthcare information, the apps on where to go to Florida Blue to find the doctor. I need a left shoulder MRI, where can I go? And not really realizing that each facility has a different cost share. So I really should go to Manatee Diagnostics, no plug there, but just it's less expensive than Rose.
Right.
And so giving these full, transparent, and real employee experiences to see the value in what they're getting. Instead, we complain about the cost and we choose the lesser of the 2 evils, and then that's what we provide to our employees.
No, really. From a broker standpoint, that's their job. I mean, commissions are baked into these things. So, what is your broker doing for you at the end of the day? Are they keeping you compliant? Are they got you Section 125? Do they have these necessary compliance docs taken care of for you? Because they're getting paid for this. Mm-hmm. You should not see your broker once a year.
That's a really good point, Mike, because we get compensated pretty well to be in the healthcare industry.
It is, and it's a shame.
Right.
It's a shame.
And what are you receiving for that? And you have to still go back to, we were hired to do this job. It's not, who are you hiring and what are they doing for you to make sure that your employees really see the value in what you're giving them?
Yeah, so the challenge I would have for anybody listening is this is something you can do that's not going to cost you any money, because we're not talking about making a switch. It's like, go to the person who's responsible for managing that benefits piece for you and ask them, I think we need to do a better job making the case for the value to the employee. They need to see it. How are we going to do that? Mm-hmm. And then, you be the judge of the answer you get back. If it's not a good one, we got somebody you can call.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's really a so what is the difference? And healthcare costs are based on or derived from your company's health experience as well as the demographics of the company. Yep. So you can go to 5 different agencies, healthcare agencies, and find an agent, and the cost is the same. Mm-hmm. What are you going to get? And again, I'm the receiver of that as an employee. It's $12,000 a year, even if it's a cost share and it's coming out of my pocket to cover my family's cost. Very few of them truly understand what it is that they're buying.
Yeah.
And yet you go again, I'm going to go buy a $12,000 used car. Yeah. I'm going to know everything about that car before I purchase it, and we take healthcare for granted. Yeah. So we really need to step up, and I think other brokers need to step up.
The tools that you're able to put in their hands through technology, I think this is where they become super important.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, you could sit me in a conference room with your benefits expert, and they could lay out the whole landscape for me, and I'd be like, oh, I get it why it's more important to go to this provider than that provider, right? You think I'm going to go sit down with my wife at the kitchen table and be like, the next time we take the kid, but I can't say, hey, they told me about this resource they have. Like, here's the login code.
Yeah.
And if you ever have a question about taking the kids to which doctor or you going or scheduling an appointment, like I think this is going to be really good for us. Yeah. And I think we miss that, making that connection at home, because it's a family benefit. But
Yeah.
we're putting way too much pressure on the family member who gets a paycheck to actually make use of that benefit. Because I'll screw it up
We're really
every time.
big, and I'm always a big proponent, especially when we're in kind of an artist. We're heavy contracting as well, and because of payroll, there's no industry. So from hospitality, and in Florida, we're heavily influenced with contracting. So you get a large group of guys, they're glossed over.
Yeah.
They want nothing to do
They
with
never
the
go to the doctor
deductible,
anyway.
copay, and co-insurance. What is co-insurance? However, I'll yell at them, and it's your wives who are going to be concerned. You've got to go home and relay what I just explained to you. But here's the most important thing. Open your employee self-service app through our payroll portal, and everything I talked about is all laid out in there in a very complete and understandable way that your wife is now going to know, or spouse or significant other are going to know what it is, and access to us if you need help.
You know, the other thing too that if employers need to be recognizing is that the benefit landscape, the offerings, is starting to become more and more broad. So it used to be you had major medical and maybe a dental or vision plan. That is morphing into a more holistic kind of coverage of more needs that employees are having right now. So, you know, one of the big buzzwords now is mental health and wellness, right? And so that's becoming a more of a need, and so we need to make sure that the plans are covering those aspects as well. The other thing too is, so we just looked at a company that we think we're going to be offering. It's called A Priority. So this gets into the financial side of the employees' well-being as well. So this is a company that we're going to be offering to our clients, where if you are an employee, it's a very small monthly charge. I think it's like something like in the neighborhood of like $5 a month that the employer pays. You now have access to an app that you can go in and put some information into, and then it turns around and goes out and looks at all of it. Goes into your Equifax, looks at your loans that you have outstanding, and then will go out and actually shop those loans for you behind the scenes, so it doesn't hit hard hits on your credit report. And they have relationships with lenders that will turn around and it'll take your mortgage and find a better rate if it's available. It'll take your auto loan, find a better rate. It will look for student loan alternatives, your credit cards. It does your entire financial picture, and then turn around and within your app, you will actually have offers from mortgage company, real offers to be able to take your interest rate from 4% down to 3.5%, or you know, right now obviously it's much higher than that now. Yeah. So, but if you're at a 7% mortgage, it can get you down to a 5.5% mortgage. And so that's just taking, you know, the well-being, the financial side, because if you come to work and you're stressed over finances, you know, the productivity is not there. Yeah. So it's broadening and looking more beyond just your major medical side of it, and those are coming out in the future as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the insights. There's definitely some value takeaways. There's going to be what we call a leadership guide. That's kind of a post podcast, kind of self-help or one pager. Usually it's like 2 pages, but it'll have resources connected to the things that you guys have enlightened us on. It'll also have your contact information, ways to get in touch with you, and I really appreciate you guys giving us the benefit of your insight and sharing your story, because I think your story is something that a lot of other business owners can relate to, especially if they're partners or they're looking to bring partners in. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you.